Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of Action Movie Anatomy on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. We are going to break down today one of the most anticipated films in the history of Action Movie Anatomy, the brilliant 2004 superhero film, or is it a superhero film at all, The Punisher. See you in just a second.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk, we talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Action Movie Anatomy.
Boom! Yeah! It gets me so excited every time.
It just feels right.
It's like, oh, it took us 70 episodes to figure this trick out. Play the instrumental to Still Dre.
We need to figure out a way to throw Big Willie style and Still Dre and collab that. Fans, please make that for us.
That's the one I forgot. It was on the Men in Black episode.
Yes, very good.
Still fucking with you.
He doesn't say that. Oh, no, in this song,
In this song he does.
It's like Will Smith would never say
Yeah,
that.
he
but
would never drop the F-bomb. No way.
My friend's dad being like, I just like Will Smith. He's just a good rapper. He's clean. It wasn't Mark Quinn.
He's clean. He's clean. He's wholesome. He's a good influence for children.
Shows you can make good rap without having to say bad words.
Look, he gets jiggy with it. He
does. Him and Jada Pinkett get G.
He's edgy. Guys, welcome to the show. Welcome to Action Movie Anatomy on the Popcorn Talk Network, the online broadcast network dedicated to talking movies and all things movie related. This is Action Movie Anatomy, and we today are covering Jonathan Hensleigh's directorial debut, The Punisher, 2004's superhero film.
It's not my birthday, but it feels like it's my birthday.
He wanted to do this movie for 2 years.
I've wanted to do this movie since day one. I love this movie so much. I watch this movie at least a few times a year.
Yeah.
Every single year. And, I mean, it was like a win-win-win situation in the poll this week.
Yep.
Because it was Ghost in the Darkness, The Punisher, and
Art of War.
And Art of War.
Guess who made the poll this week, guys?
Yeah, guess who made the poll?
True story, guys. There was about a month-long period where I would walk into a room in my house. I would find a VHS tape of The Punisher hiding, like, in the bathroom or in my bed, in a sock drawer.
Should be placed, just to think about it.
In the kitchen. Knock on the door, and then under the door slides the DVD of The Punisher.
My favorite was the toaster, when it would just pop up in the toaster every now and then.
This never happened, but it's a great cartoon. This is Action Movie Anatomy. We talk about action movies on the show. We break them down into all kinds of fun things, and they adhere to 4 basic rules, aside from being made after 1981, which is
loose rule.
We mention it every week because it's not really a rule. We've broken every other rule, so I guess we could have just made it the 5th rule.
It's just there's obvious. We need one movie, and I know there's tons of them, but like we're both dying to do that came out before '81, and it's hard for us to find because we're young.
There's like a couple that we that are like on the table.
Yeah, people always talk about a few of them.
Yeah, there's a couple. There's like the Dirty Harry movies that I think they would make a lot of sense. You could easily do one of those. You could do the French Connection because it's like the classic and it won Best Picture.
People want Charles Bronson movies on here a lot.
Yeah, there's like a few. It's just that they feel and look so different than the movies that we're used to covering. But maybe we'll do one or something.
Enter the Dragon, old school. Those are great, but they're just different. They're just a little different. So back to our rules.
Yeah, so aside from 81 and on, rule number 1, the hero always plays by their own rules. Yeah, I mean, 100% he's the
Frank
Punisher.
Castle plays by his own rules.
Yeah, no question. God's gonna sit this one out. 2, the hero and the villain are always the smartest people in the room, so he is definitely the smartest guy in the room. Howard Saint feels kind of bumbling, actually.
Yeah,
he gets played so hard.
Honestly, I think the smartest guy in the room is Will Patton.
Yeah.
But he's not even really. His decisions are inconsequential. It's all up to Howard Saint at the end of the day.
I guess Howard Saint is the smartest guy in the room because he's the guy who's like, he killed my son, let's find his family.
Right.
So he sort of is, because he's the guy who's able.
All of them.
Yeah. She's such a bitch.
She's evil.
Yeah. 3, the movie is driven by a police, military, political, or mercenary figure. He's ex-military. He is ex-police.
And he's currently a mercenary. Although he's not for hire.
No.
He's just angry.
He's just a revenge guy.
Yeah.
And the movie contains minimum 1 explosion is the final rule. There's definitely a bunch of explosions in this movie. This movie is like pretty much just a straight up 90s, early 2000s action movie. It's like disguised as a superhero movie, but it's just not at all.
Yeah, and that's why I think it fits on the show, is that it doesn't feel like a superhero movie. He doesn't have any superpowers other than that of just being able to, like, get his ass kicked beyond that
Yeah.
of mortal wounds and still be okay.
And really carefully organize explosions in a car yard to form a skull.
A skull, because
if
he
you were
knew-
looking above.
Yeah, you'd have to be... Right.
Before the explosions and fires spread, so that it looked convoluted and like a big, just like sloppy mess.
yeah.
So like whatever plane that was flying overhead would take a picture and be like, it was a skull.
It was a skull.
I swear to God, I know it doesn't look like a skull
Why
anymore.
it was there. On
I-
the ground, it would just look like a horrible mess.
Yeah, not to mention like the cars were like flying all over the place.
Sweet death, though.
It's a good death. Yeah, really good death. So we're going to get into that in just a second here, guys, but we are going to cue up the trailer to 2004's The Punisher before we do anything else. So let's watch the trailer.
And we see the 22 of you guys in chat. Hello.
Hello.
Can't believe I'm home.
The music's already
I
not
could
right.
ever be so lucky.
Not lucky. You're blessed.
Tom Hanks was a mild-mannered banker.
right? Kevin Spacey was at the end of his rope.
All right, everybody, quiet down.
He only had 1 week left on the job.
Had in 5 years. The future.
Until he met...
Future.
Whoa. This is a different movie.
Tom Cruise is the last samurai.
The future was something my family would never see. They thought they murdered me. They were wrong.
What?
They were dead wrong. That man must die. Don't do it!
Don't let your memories kill you.
They can't kill me. I'm already dead.
Thomas Jane, John Travolta.
There you go.
Dead. Whatever it takes. Whatever it costs. This is not revenge. It's punishment.
Oh, that was the song I was going to open to. Yeah, I was going to with a hell of mud.
The Punisher.
Just a fucking god-awful trailer.
It's really bad.
It was really... Why don't we ever do that voice? That was the one trailer voice that we never did because it was a joke. It was
Yeah.
only in straight-to-DVD action martial art movies.
Yeah, you're dead right. You're dead right. The music at the beginning of that trailer, like, it seriously felt like you were watching the beginning of a trailer that was like...
American Beauty.
Yeah, basically.
Or Tom Hanks or
Yeah,
something.
Yeah, with only 1 week left on the job. It will take courage.
Howard Crick.
So that was the trailer for The Punisher. 2004, like, it's... This movie came out in just like... Well, so, all right, we'll
Yeah,
get
let's
to...
move into thesis, because I think this ties perfectly into mine.
I have a very similar thesis, I'll bet you. But before we talk about our thesis, guys, if you want to follow along in the conversation, there's a live chat going right now.
There is.
Find it on YouTube. If you're listening or watching, you're in it. And if you're not, it's no longer live, so that's dumb. Thanks for being in it, though. And...
Thanks.
Yes, thank you, though. And if you want to follow along with us and share your thoughts with us, you can find the podcast on Twitter at AMA Podcast. And if you want to tweet at us personally, you can find me at Ben Bateman Media on Twitter or Instagram.
And you can do the same for me on Twitter and Instagram at Andrew Ghai, not at Ben Bateman Media.
Nope.
Joel Hammond just said, I still don't know if the on-the-nose jokes makes this movie amazing or not. And we're going to get into all of this with all the legitimacy questions about this movie and all that. But first, let's get into our thesis, because I'm very curious as to what yours is. I want to know, because it must be very similar to mine.
Well,
We didn't talk about it this time.
no,
Yeah,
we did
talked
not.
about it.
So this is my thesis. This movie's greatest failure and greatest success are both that it's the only Marvel superhero film ever made that in no way resembles a superhero movie. And it came out in a time when the absolute expectation was it would be a superhero movie. It came in the middle of, I mean, literally, the guy that wrote this movie wrote the movie before it was The Incredible Hulk, and the movie he wrote after it was Fantastic Four. Like, this movie is dead center in the time, but it is in no way a superhero movie.
Yeah, and mine is not the same actually at all, but it is similar with the time period, because I do completely agree with you. It doesn't feel like a superhero movie at all, and that's why since day one I've argued that it could be on the show. My thesis is that this film's greatest failure was when it was released. If it had come out 6 years earlier or later, I think 2010
Yeah.
or 98 or 96, Yeah, no, 8. Whatever.
Sure.
Mid-90s. It would have been a better movie. It would have been better received, but for some reason, with when it came out and all the movie, like the ones you just talked about specifically, Incredible Hulk and Fantastic Four, most superhero movies hadn't really figured it out yet.
Yeah.
All of them actually hadn't figured it out yet, except for Iron Man.
That's
which comes out after this.
4 years later.
Exactly. That's my point, is that no superhero movie had figured it out. And this movie was just kind of a victim of that.
See, so I think I agree and I disagree.
Okay.
I agree because when it came out is definitely its biggest failure. And it's less about the time period as it is about the movies that were surrounding it. So what you're talking about.
Okay.
I think that there were superhero movies that had figured it out, sort of, but like they would be single movies. So take, for instance, if you look at all the movies that were being released within the 5 years of this, before and after, because Marvel Studios in 2008 is when Iron Man starts, and that's a whole different animal. But the first one, the test movie that everybody wanted to know if it worked, we talked about Blade a few weeks ago. Blade was like that was the soft test. People liked Blade. X-Men was the actual real test, the first X-Men movie.
Yeah.
It was successful enough, it made enough money, people liked it, it was received well enough, they could continue making movies. At that time, X-Men 2 and Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, those were like the gold standard of what superhero movies were supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, and those all came out within a few years there. They're all before Punisher.
But that's why, okay, so continue.
Those ones kind of did it right. I mean, I think we'll use air quotes on the idea of right, because if you compare those movies and that era to what we have now, it's really just a different conversation. Like, they would get standalone successes, but they hadn't figured out how to weave things together. You had different studios owning different properties. There was no cohesiveness. It wasn't like now where you have multiple Netflix series competing with similar characters that are weaving in and out of 4 and 5 franchise movies with the same actors. Like, so this movie comes out, like we said, Incredible Hulk is a bomb. Ang Lee directs the Hulk.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Makes no sense. The Fantastic Four movies are bad.
All bad.
Right? And this is in the middle of it. So people see this and they think, okay, if you're a fan of the Punisher from the comics, you expect this to be a cheesy, like, let's take the property and give you a whole bunch of spandex and costumes, just like these other movies. It's not that at all. And they slashed the budget by $50 million. So they made basically a low-budget superhero, like a low-budget action movie that was titled a superhero movie in the era of bad superhero movies.
So Batman Begins comes out in 2006?
5, I think.
Okay, so my thesis was saying that if this movie came out in 2010 or 96, somewhere in that, 96 or 2010, it would be better than where it is in 2004. And my reasoning behind that is, I'm going to agree with everything that you've just said about all the properties that had come out. The problem with Punisher is it was flirting with, do I go 90s or do I go early 2000s? Right. So, but if it comes out later, I think that all those jokes, those self-referential jokes, the things that Joel's talking about in chat, those get pushed aside, and you get a better Punisher in 2010 with Thomas Jane that is dark, that is gritty, that is in the Marvel Universe, that takes itself seriously. I think that when it came out, it was too heavily influenced by everything right around it. Yep. And I think it just needed to happen later, not even earlier. I think just later, or if it happened earlier, it just wasn't a superhero movie at all.
Totally. I think if it's earlier, I think like if this movie comes out in 1998, unfortunately, I don't think it can star Thomas Jane, because Thomas Jane's like 26 at that point.
Yeah.
And he's Todd from Boogie Nights at that point. He has like no star. There's no
Todd?
Yeah.
Todd Parker?
Todd Parker. If it comes out later, I mean, so sort of referencing back to my thesis for a second, like the fact it's the greatest failure and success, because if you go forward and you think about what's the most successful superhero movie made with a suit, like without any superpowers or universe, it's the Nolan Batman movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's even sort of superhero-ish there.
I guess Iron Man,
but
because he doesn't have superpowers either.
Yeah, but who's he fight in the first one? He fights another guy in a suit.
So I guess those are the only two, is Iron Man and Batman.
But I guess like Nick Fury shows up at the end. It's still sort of in the universe. So like you're led to believe that it's like
Iron Man doesn't stand alone the same way that the Dark Knight series does.
Those are like, he's got high-tech stuff and he jumps off a building and he can fly around and stuff, but he still does kind of wear a cape.
Yeah.
And he's still like, so it's hard to say that those aren't superhero-ish. Like, he wears a fucking skull on his chest. He doesn't, all of the things that that the character of the Punisher, like in the original comics through the years that he had. So like Microchip was a character from the comics for years and years, who was this like nerdy guy with glasses who would be in the battle van, which was like his high-tech van of gear,
right,
and would like do the intel on the mobs and have all these super high-tech gadgets. Like, Hensley stripped all that away. He was like, I don't want Micro, I don't want the battle van, I don't want Jigsaw, who's like the main villain. You didn't have like a giant super villain like the Kingpin. You had Howard Saint, who was just like
a nobody.
A money launderer, crooked banker was the villain. Like, there's nothing about this movie that feels like a superhero movie.
Yeah, that's fair. I want to read a couple of these thesis statements that we have in our chat. Joel Hammett says, this is John Travolta's last movie where he was taken seriously, or at least casted as a serious actor. Everything after this movie he's in seems to be casted as a joke.
Hairspray.
Jonas Tiger says, this movie would have been much better if it had the same feel as Blade. This was the last bad Marvel movie made before they got good. Do you agree with that?
Last bad, I would have to look at the years to be very, very specific about it, but I have a feeling there was a couple others between this and Iron Man that were not great.
Yeah, I feel like
Fantastic Four 2...
yeah, that's one that you just mentioned was Fantastic Four.
That comes out after, right, it's 05. And then I think Fantastic Four 2, Rise of the Silver Surfer, I think is like 07.
Yeah.
So there's some pretty bad ones. I mean, I think Elektra probably.
Yeah, I mean, the Marvel Universe was a joke
Yeah.
until it got revamped.
Those four we really talked about. X-Men 1 and 2, Spider-Man 1 and 2, and then aside from that, I think they're almost all bad.
Yeah, it was like, look at all this awesomeness, and then they did the 90s thing to all of them, and then they had to reset.
Well, because Avi Arad, the producer we're going to talk about here in a little bit, his whole thing was like he was very much like influenced by like the toys and the cartoons and the comics. Like,
we talked about him a lot on, was it Blade?
Yeah. Exactly. So
thanks for talking to us in chat, guys, with your thesis statements and all that, and it's a very lively bunch today, so I'll keep referencing it as much as I can as we move along.
To fist pump moment. So guys, if you watch or listen, you know fist pump moment is that moment in the movie, something happens and you're just like, this is so fucking sweet, I get to watch this whole movie. Oh, this is great. You look around, you want to be like, are you watching this right now? You want to call your buddy,
you keep looking at your roommate, you're like, you on your phone, or you watching the movie? You watching the movie, you know.
Yeah, it could be anything. Yeah, exactly. You're like, come on, man, put your phone down. Yeah. Could be anything. It could, be a look from one character to another. It could be a line, could be an explosion, a headshot, the title credits, the music, whatever. It's just your thing that makes you feel like, fuck yeah. I'll jump in first with mine.
Okay.
Because it's the scene after Ben Foster they get interrogated and all his piercings get torn out.
Yeah.
And he's like, you don't know me, he says like, why, you don't know me anything, why didn't you give him up? And Foster's like, because you're one of us. Because you're one of us, your family. And I love that moment. I really loved that moment because it's like they did a great thing with this particular Punisher movie by even like Daredevil, the TV Daredevil that I really, really like with Charlie Cox and John Bernthal as Punisher. It's like a really well done thing, but it doesn't like encompass like moments like that in the way that a movie can.
Yeah, you need... The term they use is they tug at your heartstrings.
Yeah.
And it's in a different way because, like, Ben Foster, I think, is the most brilliant cast in this whole movie. You need that guy, and Ben Foster's so good at going crazy like he is when he's playing video games.
Yeah, right.
And he's also so good at being vulnerable like he is in the chair. And when he says that first line when her ex-boyfriend comes and he's all drunk, he's like, no one's ever stood up for me before.
Yeah.
And you kind of have these moments of like, that's a real person.
Yep.
We talk about this with our ridiculously legitimate all the time, is that roles like that where it grounds you in reality.
Yeah.
I love that moment. I really do.
Yeah, I really love that moment. I loved his relationship to all of them just there because the fact that he leaves at the end of the movie, that he never has a romantic moment with Rebecca Romaine Stamos, that they're just these reject characters who are there that kind of go through this with him, and he finishes his mission and he leaves, and that's it. There's like, you know what I mean?
I mean, people talk about how he's the greatest anti-hero, or how the Punisher is an anti-hero, but in this movie, he's just a hero. Like, I understand that he's dark and he kills people, but he's only killing bad people, and moments like this, his relationship with these people is that glimmer of like what they always talk about in Deadpool. There are 3 or 4 moments, only 3 or 4 moments when you decide that you're a hero, and it's like this is those moments with him and Rebecca Romaine and John and Ben. I think John, I can't remember his name. He's a comedian.
Yeah.
Those are great moments.
Yeah, definitely.
And I do love that there's never a romantic moment.
Yeah. So it's all taken from a comic book series. We talked a bit about this with Blade. So Marvel went bankrupt in the mid to late 90s, and relaunched with new titles in the late 90s, like 98. So there was a line called Marvel Knights that got launched, and it was the darker characters that were a little bit more in the vein of like real people, and they all were supposed to have a little bit just darker, less like cartoony of a feel. So there was a relaunch of The Punisher right around the same time, and the writer and artist of the famous series Preacher, Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon, were tasked to come on and do a story called Welcome Back, Frank. That's where these characters are all from. They're all created in 2000 for this run. And it's the same thing. The Russian, all that stuff, that's all from that story. Now, the dialogue and the scenes with the ex-boyfriend, that's not all from that, at least as far as I remember. It's been a while since I've read it. Yeah. But that's all, and those characters are all Garth Ennis characters. So, like, if you guys watched Preacher, if you like the comic book Preacher, like, that's because he's a great fucking writer.
Yeah.
It's like the best Punisher comics ever written are, like, ones written by great people. So, all those guys, Bumpo and Spacker Dave, they're all created like a couple years before this comes out.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are amazing characters. And we got a couple fist pumps in here from the audience. We got the fight he has with the big fuck-off blonde guy with his stupid red and white t-shirt, which is Kevin Nash, the wrestler. Amazing fight.
Yeah.
So cool. And like, the boiling water. Just the pain of that in his face.
Blood was supposed to spurt out of his eyes originally.
Oh, really? They just tried to...
They had to tone it down. Because, again, it's from the comics. This blood spurts out of his fucking eyes.
I mean, if you get boiling... I mean, I don't know what happened. So that was Rangers fan. Joel Hammond says, when he pulls out the knife against the Johnny Cash character and the blade flies out, you must be one dumb son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Bring a knife to a gunfight.
Harry Hecker.
So good. Let's see. Is that all there are? Okay. So my fist pump moment... is also it's also my favorite line, but I can change my favorite line because I have a bunch of lines that I love just because they're stupid. But it's when he's got Howard Sand on the ground. Well, first of all, I just love his shot. He does like a little hip shot, like he doesn't even try, and he hits him in the stomach. He's like, and he like spins around and falls down. Travolta's the ultimate bitch in this movie.
You've seen this movie like 30 times.
Oh, I've seen this movie at least 30 times. I know this movie very, very well. I'm trying to like reel it in a little bit. But it's when he's dragging him and he's like, made you kill your best friend, made you kill your wife, now I'm gonna kill you. And my fist pump is Travolta's like he like does like this whine, like this whimper, and the reason that I love it is because I mean you kind of laugh at it. But imagine that moment.
Yeah.
Like, if I just killed you.
Yeah.
And then my wife.
Yeah.
Like, my best friend and my wife, because they're having an affair and they're betraying me, and I find out it's because the person that I hate most in the world has tricked me. Like, that moment, like, that rage.
And you're shot and bleeding out.
And you're shot and bleeding out, getting drugged by a car.
Yeah.
So, that moment is just, I love revenge films.
Yeah.
And Travolta is just evil enough and just enough of a bitch to where you just love to watch him die.
He is the shit weasel of the movie.
He is, and he's so good at it.
Yeah, he's great. I was watching
I have more guns than you.
I was watching the Junket interviews from when this movie came out. From 2004, like all of the little one-on-ones. And Travolta's got this one interview he did with like Screen Rant, I think. You would have died laughing because he's like I've heard a lot of stories about Travolta. A lot of stories about Travolta.
I feel like he's like a unicorn to me. I know so little about him because I don't like to watch.
Yeah, so he's like just apparently like just such a pompous fuck is like what I hear. I've never met the guy, so all of this is secondhand.
Yeah.
But,
and if you want to come on the show, John.
Yeah. Please. But he the interview, he's like, somebody asked him about Pulp Fiction and what it meant for him to be in that movie, and he's like, well, when you're a great actor, the director's job is to let you just do your job, and when you hire someone like me, that's the job. It's just and then he's like, you see, when Saturday Night Fever came out, I changed the world, and he's like, when Pulp Fiction came out, the movie changed the world. And he's like, at that point in my career, it was better for me to be in a film that changed the world rather than just my own role, you see. And I was just watching, I was like, wow. This is all real.
You're a real human being right now.
Jeez, that's pretty much, I mean, go look it up, guys. Go look that one up.
I gotta look that up.
Yeah. So, anyhow.
Let's see, Andrew, if this is your movie, let that excitedness shine. I'm digging how much you love this movie. Yes! Stardrew says the fist pump is the Claymore mine and it's out of reach of John's second son speed. Oh, he's talking about when he's
right.
You ever try isometrics?
Yeah.
Like get in shape. All right, so getting on to where these guys are at in their career, which I think is super interesting because they're both in very odd places in their career. So Thomas Jane is on his way up. I I think he's trying to establish himself as a leading man, but he's not quite done it. So in Stander and Dreamcatcher, he's the lead.
Do you remember Stander?
I looked both of them up. Is that the one about the wife?
So Stander I saw in theaters. Stander is the movie that all the posters for it were like, who is Stander? And it was like this really, really badly done version of the bank robber character who's like becomes like a celebrity, and he's kind of like a Robin Hood sort of character a little bit.
Okay, yeah. What was on the box cover?
It was like I think it was like a sight, like a gun sight, and it
his
said
half
like
face,
and it said like Stander, and you could see his face in the gunshot or something like that.
Yeah.
I think he had sunglasses on.
Yes.
I saw it in theaters. I don't remember why. I don't even think I really knew who Thomas Jane was particularly.
Yeah.
But like 2003, Dreamcatcher, I remember the movie that I didn't see it, and I did see The Sweetest Thing, I think.
I've seen The Sweetest Thing, of course.
Of course you have. You had sisters growing up. I've seen it.
It's a phenomenal
I've
film.
seen The Sweetest Thing several times.
I really have.
So he's Deep Blue Sea must have been what, like 01?
Yeah,
2000?
just before that. Yeah, and then he was also in Magnolia. He's also in Boogie Nights.
Yep.
He had another one.
He's
as
in
well.
Face Off. He's got the role in Face Off in like '97. He has basically a run there of about 7 years where he's like, and this is the moment right here where he's supposed to be. This is the Henry Cavill does Immortals, and he wants to do. What's it called? Superman.
Yeah.
Right. This is like the thing where it's like Thomas Jane. Like they talk about Hensleigh and Avi Arad were like, we had tried to cast Thomas Jane in multiple Marvel projects for several years before this movie. He turned down the role of Punisher twice. He didn't want to do it because he didn't see himself as a superhero kind of actor. And then finally, they sent him the cover sketches that the artist Tim Bradstreet does, which all are from that same Garth Ennis series. They're super dark, really, really cool. And Marissa's like, would you actually mind, while we're doing this, looking up Tim Bradstreet Punisher and just throwing a couple up on screen? They're really cool and really dark, and I think you'll understand why he probably responded the way that he did. So he decides to do this movie because it's so stripped down, and he likes that it's not a superhero movie and the guy has no superpowers, and like it just never happened for him.
It didn't. And
weird.
And we're about to have the over-under properly rated discussion with John Travolta, which I think is a very good discussion. You made a good point that Thomas Jane never really broke through to that leading man position to have the argument, because I honestly feel that Thomas Jane is one of the most underrated actors in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I know that's because I have a bias because of Boogie Nights. But if you haven't seen Boogie Nights, Thomas Jane gives one of the best performances I've ever seen. It's the best performance I've ever seen him do. And I always say that I think if you have an actor, a good actor, with a great director,
right,
like Paul Thomas Anderson or Darren Aronofsky, and you take people like Marlon Wayans in Requiem for a Dream, or you take Thomas Jane in Boogie Nights, these guys are incredible actors. They can do. You look at John C. Reilly in every movie he does with P.T. Anderson.
Yeah.
That guy could win a supporting Academy Award every single time he's in one of his films. He's incredible.
Yeah, he's so good.
So I just think Thomas Jane is so underutilized, and it's such a bummer that this movie just flopped, because this was it. This was the turning point in his career.
Yeah. He's not. It's not like he's totally like off the rails now.
No, but this was like in the
33 years old, like
doing it. Here's your movie.
Super jacked. Yeah. So this is like the Bradstreet stuff. You can see it's like very. It's not like superhero-y and like wearing tights and the white boots. It's like basically like retired Vietnam vet,
gritty,
who's like grizzled and just like in the dark all the time. Those are all the covers to the books, I remember. So this is like what they showed him. They're like, check this out. This is who you are.
This is what we want. And I of course he wanted to do that. It looks badass.
That's the cover to the first one, I remember. It's fucking sweet. All right, so moving on to John Travolta. Thank you, Marissa. I appreciate that. That's Marissa Serafini up in the booth. She's
Deep Blue
doing
Sea.
Engineering, producing. How are you, Marissa?
What's up, Marissa?
I'm great, guys. I'm enjoying this discussion because I also like this film.
This movie's amazing. You guys should thank Marissa Serafini every week for getting us started on time, because Ben and I are not good at that, and she is very good at that.
And ever since she took over, she's really been good about it.
Yeah, it's because she doesn't take our bullshit. She just makes us sit down and get ready.
I like it.
Love you, Marissa. So moving on to John Travolta, this is another interesting part in his career, because I don't even know how to explain this part in his career. He'd like become the best. Okay, good. I figured you had like some theory or something.
So John Travolta, he references it in that sweet interview I was just talking about. But
greatest actor.
John Travolta came around a long fucking time ago. That guy's 62 years old.
Yeah.
He came around in the mid 70s, like early 70s. So the Saturday Night Fever is 1976, and he is not really joking when he says that his performance changed the world. It did in a lot of ways.
It really did.
Grease is 2 years later. That's 1978. That guy, like, talk about a guy in the late 70s who was and I hate to say this phrase, but like the actual sexiest man alive. Not like People magazine cover. Like,
no, like everyone wanted to fuck John Travolta.
He could dance. He was super handsome.
He had that like butthole chin that was super hot for some reason.
It was ridiculous. So that's the 70s. But the star got to him too much because the 80s is a wasteland. It's a total wasteland. Like, you go watch like Urban Cowboy, which I think is 1980, and Blowout in 81. The next 10 years of his career are bad. He's barely in anything. His career was basically over. So Pulp Fiction resurrected John Travolta's career in 1994. Like, that's not like an exaggeration.
That's a real thing.
It's a real thing. He like, Travolta had grown up watching him, and he loved, Quentin Tarantino he loved Travolta, so he put him in that movie in 94, and that's when you see the next little stretch, which is Get Shorty and Face Off and Broken Arrow, and he got a ton of roles. Michael, Phenomenon, like all these movies.
He had literally resurfaced, and it's like, for me growing up in that time, I didn't even know John Travolta Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah, right.
I didn't know that person. John Travolta, for me, was a badass action star when I was growing up.
He was a villain. He was Broken Arrow. He was Face Off.
Really quick, my phone's going to die, so guys in the live chat, goodbye.
Bye, guys. So he's doing all that stuff, and then in the late 90s, you still have movies like A Civil Action and movies like General's Daughter.
I was sick of this. That movie box cover will always stick in my mind. I don't know why.
And so this movie in 2004, he had done Swordfish, I think, in 2002.
Yes, I love that movie.
And this is kind of the tail end of that decade of resurrection, where it's like he's a big name that people take seriously. Now, he never fell off in the same way that he did in the 80s. Like that.
Right.
He, between 2004 and 2017, he did a bunch of stuff. Like, Hairspray was super successful.
Yeah, and you got to remember that, like, he had all that crazy stuff going on in his family life. He took 2 years off of film between 2010 and 12, and like, he just needed a break, and that happens when you work for 40 years.
Right, and he's clearly taking, risks with what he's doing, like, that's
nice. That's our chat.
Hey guys, we can see the chat up on the screen. So if you guys keep talking to us, you don't have to say bye, Guy Jonas. We're still here. But he was still doing stuff. Taking Pelham 123, From Paris with Love, like those movies. He was just kind of taking chances.
It's so crazy how he went from literally the literal sexiest man alive to a villain.
Yeah,
because that's pretty much all he plays forward. I mean, you got Broken Arrow, Face Off. You got From Paris with Love, Taking a Pelham 123.
Yeah.
This movie. Anyway, so it's just weird. So that being said, let's go in and have this conversation with over, under, and properly rated for John Travolta.
Do you want to go first?
I don't, because I feel like I need to think more.
So my initial thought was that John Travolta is properly rated because anybody who blows a decade of their career in their prime, it's like hard to call them underrated.
Yeah.
On the other hand, that same exact argument can be used for why he's underrated, because he managed to be the sexiest man alive, be in these dancing movies,
flop his career,
come back in the 90s, become like this like sort of, and then even now something I thought about was he plays Robert Shapiro in The People vs. O.J. Simpson, and he's great. That was last year.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
He's fantastic in that movie. So, or in that show, and like, he's a really good actor, and the stuff he's saying that like a good director's job is to put you in position to just be yourself. It's like
he's right.
What Cage does, kind of essentially the same sort of thing. Fly off the handle, be unpredictable. Like, it's true. And Travolta is a great actor. So I think for my money, I would say John Travolta's underrated.
And I went. I started off with overrated just because I was just like, meh. Yeah. I don't like you, John Travolta. Then I thought about it some more, and I was like, I really don't dislike John Travolta. I just feel like I had like something with him for a while, and I don't really even know why. Maybe he overshot. Who knows? Yeah. I agree. I think he's underrated, man. Like, you go back and we talk about this entire career that he's had and the phases of it, and how hard it is to come back in this industry. We've learned that time and time again doing the show. It's almost impossible. And the reason I say underrated is because I want to see him do more. I want to see him do some cool shit as an old man. I want to see a role. I didn't watch People vs. O.J. Simpson. I don't know how I missed that. But I want to see him do things like that. And that's how I know that he's underrated to me, is because I want more from him. I want to see him do great again.
Yeah.
So, as crazy as it is, yeah, I think John Travolta's underrated right now.
I mean, look, Saturday Night Fever, Grease, Pulp Fiction, Get Shorty, Face Off, The Punisher, People vs. O.J. Simpson, Look Who's Talking, Look Who's Talking 2. These are movies that are legitimate classics.
Yeah.
I mean, well, The Punisher is not a legitimate classic in anyone's mind other than yours. But I mean, that's like 7 or 8 different things that are like very legitimate. And I think it's generationally the guy, he spanned generations in a way that like a lot of people are not able to. And I think generationally he's underrated because right now the younger generation only knows him as this like sniveling kind of shitweasel lawyer in the People versus OJ.
Right.
You know, the last time he was relevant before that was a decade. So anybody who's young kind of has no idea, except for like Grease and Saturday Night Fever, because those movies have lived on. Pulp Fiction.
Those movies transcend time.
Yeah. So I think he's underrated.
Yeah, I think I'll agree. And you guys feel free to throw up your ideas in the chat there and let us know what you think, if he's over, under, or properly rated, and give us a reason why.
Josh Hammett, I love Travolta back in Phenomenon, and Michael would really like to see that style of him again. I love that period in his career. He was just getting that money. I mean, a civil action, basic, like
just go be yourself, and we'll just pay you millions.
He has a role in The Thin Red Line, I'm pretty certain. Smaller role.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to Jonathan Hensleigh. We've talked about him a good amount today. This was his directorial debut. And he wrote... Sorry, go ahead.
I believe the only movie he ever directed.
Yeah. I can't remember when I did the research on him if he was working on another one now, but yeah, it was basically... This is the only thing he's directed. Kind of an interesting career for this guy as a writer and all that. It was funny. In the chat, they were talking about him saying that he'd written Fantastic Four and The Incredible Hulk. Yeah. And they were just like, not really a good resume for this poor guy.
Yeah, but that's Jonathan. That's Michael France. So.
Yeah.
So but they wrote this movie together. But yeah, definitely. Hensleigh is the guy that gets his start writing originally for the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, and after leaving a career in law. So he's currently married to Galen Hurd, who's like the legendary producer. But he wrote some massive, massive movies.
That woman does everything.
Yeah, in 1995 he wrote Die Hard 3, and that was the highest grossing movie domestically. Second highest grossing movie in 95, and then in 1998 he wrote Armageddon, which was the highest grossing movie. Yes. Uncredited rewrites on The Rock, Con Air, Gone in 60 Seconds. So he's definitely a guy whose name is pretty synonymous with success, and his successes are still recently enough that he could easily, I think, still get the job writing something massive.
Oh yeah, and he wrote Jumanji too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was the
right.
Okay. I was getting mixed up. That's just the crazy thing about doing the show for as long as we do. So many of these writers just keep popping up, and these producers over decades.
Yeah, definitely. So now Hensleigh directed Punisher in 2004. And there was a sequel that was like in the works that he was going to do, but they continued cutting funding, and they couldn't come up with a script that they wanted to. So he ended up pulling out of the project, and same with Thomas Jane dropped out of the project, and the sequel ended up kind of dying. It got resurrected with Ray Stevenson.
Who stars in the sequel?
Ray Stevenson.
Ray Stevenson. Okay.
Yeah, the guy from he's from tons of stuff, but he's from the other guys. He's the guy that plays. The fucking FBI guy?
Right. I was like, there's a reason why we've talked about the lead of this.
There's three things I love in a woman. Buttocks. The dimples above a woman's buttocks. And Kylie Minogue. And hurting people.
We got to do a week where we just do MacGruber and the other guys. That's it.
Yeah, the combo episode. So yeah, that's the guy that ends up starring in Punisher Warzone, and that's like 2010 probably. Mm-hmm. That's like that is a Marvel Studios movie, but it's not in the Marvel universe because John Barenthal is the Punisher in the Marvel universe.
Yes.
So it's just one of those weird movies that was in development.
Do you think that movie's going to happen eventually? The Barenthal Punisher movie?
An actual movie?
Or do you think it's just going to be a TV show? Series?
I would guess he would get a TV series because that whole like Marvel Knights little like ring of Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Luke Cage, soon to be Iron Fist. Those are all characters that are connected.
What do you think of that Iron Fist trailer?
I actually haven't watched it yet.
Is that right?
Yeah, people said it was awesome.
I feel like I know, they did, and it was pretty cool. I think that I'm getting a little oversaturated.
Really?
Yeah, it's a bummer because I love Daredevil, and I love the Punisher.
Right.
But like Jessica Jones, and I heard that Luke Cage was just god-awful.
Okay, yeah, I didn't watch it.
Yeah,
I watched the
me neither.
beginning of Jessica Jones. I watched all of
Same.
Daredevil.
I just don't want it to go down. I love that shit so much.
Yeah.
That's
So-
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, it's all right. So yeah, Hensleigh did the first one. He never ended up doing another one. And there was actually a movie, a short, called The Punisher Dirty Laundry. It's a 10-minute short, which I was shocked that you hadn't seen. I figured you would have brought it up
Why
by
does
now.
this sound familiar?
It's a 10-minute YouTube short that came out in 2012, starring Thomas Jane as the Punisher, and it's super graphic, and it's like a little bit, it's like not the best quality.
Right.
The music is just from The Dark Knight. It's just the same music.
Yeah.
Actually, just put into this. But it's available, and I found it, but it also in a tweet was pointed out to us by John Sargent. So shout out to you, John Sargent, for letting us know about it. You'd like it. You should watch it.
Yeah.
But that's the sort of like unofficial continuation of the Thomas Jane as Punisher. He like beats up a gang and just like brutally murders this gang leader.
And that's the end of it.
Yeah, it's 10 minutes. It's pretty entertaining.
I'll watch it.
Yeah, totally. So that's Hensleigh. Now on the other side you have Michael France.
Right.
France wrote the spec script to Cliffhanger in '91, sold it. That was super successful and put his name on the map. So then he got asked to resurrect James Bond, and he
with
wrote
GoldenEye.
GoldenEye.
The best worst movie of all time.
GoldenEye feels like we should have done it on here by now.
We should have, but I think the problem is when we go back and watch it, it's almost unbearable.
No.
And I love that movie.
We could definitely have a good time with that movie.
Yeah, we could. We should do it.
Sean Bean.
Ah,
Yeah, Sean Bean.
it's not God that gave me this face. It was you.
It was you, James.
Setting the timers for 3 minutes instead of 5. Yeah, we should definitely do GoldenEye. Anytime we can talk Sean Bean.
So then after GoldenEye, he does some uncredited rewrites in The World Is Not Enough, and then he does this run of Marvel movies. The Ang Lee Hulk in 03, this movie in 04, and Fantastic Four, the first one in 05. And after that, he doesn't write anything else.
Yeah.
So he ended up having like a long run battling diabetes, lost some movement in the left side of his body as he got a little older, and then unfortunately passed away at age 51 in 2013, I believe. And he's just a really interesting guy reading about him.
Such a cool career, but like such a
short career.
Yeah, and almost like kind of a sad one too.
Really sad. Yeah, he bought this theater in Tampa. Tampa Bay, where he lived, and he bought this theater that was like this old school movie theater that he wanted to resurrect to show classics, and he kept it running for I think something like 8 years. It closed in 2012, but he just bought it cash with all the money that he was making from these theaters, and it was like this local theater that he grew up around. I thought that was really cool.
That is super cool. It just shows that he loves the craft, and it's crazy. Like a guy like that, I bet he had like a script, like his script, like his film that he wanted to create one day. This amazing thing, and he gets stuck with things that make money, and he passes away. It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, but I mean, to his credit, like there's 5 movies that we've both seen.
Oh, absolutely. And GoldenEye still, to this day, is the best Pierce Brosnan James Bond, which for a lot of people is the best James Bond.
And it was like super, super impactful for us as kids. Like,
yeah.
I mean, for a guy's legacy to be 5 movies that you and I have both seen it's impressive.
Absolutely.
Even if they aren't movies that we think of as the best movies across the board. I mean, you've seen one of his movies over 30 times.
I definitely have, and I can't say that about a lot of people.
So yeah, last but not least, we mentioned
that
Gail Ann Hurd already. She was married to James Cameron for a long time, worked on Terminator, Terminator 2, Aliens, Armageddon. She produces The Walking Dead now. She's just a total savage.
She's just the most badass producing female in Hollywood, probably.
Yes, she's awesome. And then Avi Arad, we talked about a bit before. He was the CEO of Toy Biz, the company that made like Marvel toys in the 90s.
Yes.
And he ended up as the founder of Marvel Studios, helped to bring Marvel out of bankruptcy through licensing deals, and then officially left Marvel in 2006. He works on other stuff now. He's very much associated with the negative part of the Marvel franchise movies.
Which is so not fair for him, I don't think. Because he brought them back from bankruptcy, from the brink, and he's still an advisor on all the stuff that they do.
Right.
It just feels... I don't know. I mean, I get it. It happens a lot in sports franchises as well.
Right.
We want to just put the past behind us. Yep. This is the name to go with it. Throw out the coach. Get in a new one.
Exactly. So yeah, this movie, Punisher, happens in a phase of Marvel where Marvel was basically lending out the rights to its characters to have a stake in ownership of the movie, so that if it did make a lot of money, Marvel would make a lot of money back, as opposed to now, Marvel just has a studio. They make the movies.
Yeah, they're just the biggest studio now.
They're the biggest. So, and Disney are geniuses because they bought Marvel and They also bought Lucasfilm.
Yeah. No, Disney's just
Disney's like, sure, Marvel and Lucasfilm.
Let's see the things that are gonna make the most money over the next 30. Let's just grab both of those.
$4 billion? Sure, no problem.
Yeah.
We'll make that back in about a year.
Easy.
Yeah.
So Lionsgate produced this film. It came out in April 16th of 2004. It cost only $33 million to make, but it only grossed $33 million domestically, adding another 20 worldwide for a total of about $54 million. Kind of a bummer. It opened number 2 at $13 million behind Kill Bill Volume 2 in its first week, doubling it at $25 million. Not fair, because Quentin Tarantino could do no wrong. At that point. And he still really can't. Like, I know we're like, people are a little more skeptical of him, but still when a Tarantino movie comes out, people lose their shit.
Yeah.
Hateful Eight was the first one for me.
Yeah.
That it felt like people had kind of reeled it in a little bit.
So I think the next one is the one where you probably see a little bit of a pullback, unless it's like a super interesting movie.
Yeah.
I think he needs to go make another, like, straight, just normal crime movie.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Definitely. He needs to quit doing all this
genre stuff.
Trying so hard. Yeah.
I would love to just see like a Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction style crime movie. That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, I can still watch those movies over and over again. So this is an interesting conversation. So critically, this got a 6.5 on IMDb, which is, for me, it feels about right. Feels fair. Feels just.
I can't see that feels right for you. I feel like it has to feel low.
It feels a little low. But Rotten Tomatoes just obliterate this movie. So all critics give it a 29%, top critics give it a 24%, and the audience give it a 63%. So this sparked a little idea for me that I feel like we should do. We have a top 5 that we like to do on this show, and I think that we should do our top 5 guilty movie pleasures, because The Punisher is on my list. I'm going to start my list with that at number 5, Punisher. This movie, I love. You've said it numerous times. I've seen this movie over 30 times, easily. I can quote this movie. It's very good. And for me to see 29s and 24s next to this movie when last week we covered Unstoppable and it was in the 90s is ludicrous.
Yeah.
So, Punisher is one of my 5. These are not in order. What do you got?
Okay, not in order. I'm going to go Pearl Harbor is my first one. 2000s Michael Bay epic. I've mentioned before that I had the 4 DVD deluxe set version for a long time. I love Alec Baldwin in it.
Didn't Roca specifically say he couldn't stand
Baldwin's terrible? I was like, I love Baldwin. I love that movie. I haven't seen it in about 10 years, but I just remember I really liked it. It had some bad parts, but I thought it was much, much better than people gave it credit for. So I like Pearl Harbor. That's one for me.
That's fair. So there was a few comedies that you and I wanted to throw. You wanted to throw in the other guys. I wanted to throw in MacGruber.
Yeah.
And there's like Shaun of the Dead. I love Hot Fuzz.
Hot Rod.
Yeah, those are all great. Hot Rod could probably be thrown in.
Yeah.
But I do have one. It's Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny. It is one of my absolute favorite movies still.
Yeah.
And I feel like it doesn't really fall in the same categories as other ones. It's just a weird fucking kind of stoner weird movie, but it's hilarious.
Yeah, for sure. That's good.
Have you seen that?
Pick of Destiny?
Yeah.
I think I saw it in theaters, honestly. I was never a big Tenacious D guy, though I did see them live once.
Oh, that would be awesome.
I saw them live.
I love those guys.
Played with Weezer, I think.
Really?
In like 2004, 5, 6, something like that. They came to Seattle and I went to the show.
That must be like the coolest. That was like the coolest thing to do in 2004 was a Weezer concert with Tenacious D.
I like have so little memory of it, honestly. I don't even.
God, you're so cool.
But yeah, I remember seeing that. All right, my number 2 is going to be Deja Vu. Tony Scott Denzel. I just love.
She has to matter to you.
Yeah. I just love the Tony Scott Denzel movies. We've talked about it way too much on here for me to elaborate too much, but just like the stuff that makes those movies so great, like his, as they say on the Denzel Washington is the greatest actor of all time period podcast. Like the things like the shot of him first walking in and like his walk, the Denzel walk. He just walks cool. Like
he's the coolest.
He's just the fucking coolest. And I just like, though it's not really a great movie, Deja Vu. It's like pretty confused.
No, that's why it's a guilty movie pleasure. I mean, I think that's completely fair. Yeah. I know.
That.
Man on Fire is almost on there, but it's not even a guilty movie. It's just a fucking sweet movie.
There's the 3 of them, I would say, Unstoppable, Man on Fire, and Crimson Tide. You can't really say are guilty because they're all like pretty decent.
Yeah, I guess Unstoppable you can't.
They're all pretty decent. It's the other 2 that would qualify.
All right, so I got Punisher, I got Tenacious D. I might as well throw in Con Air because our boy just threw it up there. I just missed who it was. I think it was Joel.
That looks like Rangers fan, maybe. Oh, there's a couple though.
Yeah, so they mentioned Con Air, The Rock, and Face Off. The Rock is not a guilty movie pleasure.
Not
Get your head out of your
even
ass.
close.
That is one of the greatest films ever made. Fair.
You know what, The
Fair.
Rock, if you were to get rid of the
Humble?
no, the chase scene, the San Francisco streets chase scene,
You think you'd be totally legit?
I think that movie would be an actual legitimate action classic for people.
your Humvee.
If not, like, I think it is an action classic, but I think it would be a different level of action classic.
If just that one scene were removed.
It's the slowest, longest scene of the movie.
It's the most Michael Bayist scene of the movie.
Yeah, it's just like not necessary.
No,
Everything else about
completely.
that movie's sweet though.
Yeah, and then they got the racism with the trolley car guy. Yeah, you're right. It's a total Michael Bay self-indulgent jerk me off scene.
Yeah, it's just not even like him escaping, like the haircut, all that stuff. That's like a little bit like really
Yeah.
that stuff. I would be okay with that if the scene ended and they didn't go on this car chase.
Yeah.
But you would miss the 360 shot of Nick
Maya
Cage standing
Angelou.
there. Yeah.
Okay, what do you got next?
All right, I'm just going to continue my thought with the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 because I love them both so much. I truthfully like the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 the most of all of these movies.
Is Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3 your favorite Tony Scott Denzel collab?
It's so hard to say, man. I really have a hard time with that question because the more I think about those movies, it's like
I almost just flipped the desk
Yeah.
over. I'm so mad.
like I love Man on Fire to death, and I love Crimson Tide in a whole different way because
Yeah.
Crimson Tide's like unique, and I think Unstoppable's so entertaining. And Deja Vu is the one that recently, for whatever reason, I've just been thinking about the most.
I remember I watched that in theaters, and I didn't watch it for a couple of years, but I always was like, that was actually a pretty good movie.
Deja Vu?
Yeah.
Yeah. But Taking of Pelham, for whatever reason, there's just something about like those two characters and Garber.
Scenes
and those
and-
couple scenes I
yeah.
just love. I love that movie.
I think that's your favorite.
I think it is.
I think Man on Fire is mine. I think Taking is yours. So you did
stupid.
the Taking. So next for me, snakes don't eat people.
Oh!
Anaconda,
I forgot about this one.
man.
We used to reference Anaconda so often on this show.
We used to just only talk to each other in John Voight's voice.
Was it even on this show? Did it even translate to this show? Or
Like very, very little in the beginning. I remember.
I like that used to be like the thing. Yeah, snakes don't eat people.
What was the other one?
Anacondas are a killing machine.
Anaconda's a killing machine. Like, where are you from, man?
No, it's Anacondas are a perfect killing machine. That's the line.
Perfect killing. All right. Yeah, I understand not liking Cage, but loving his movies. That's fair.
It's totally fair. So yeah, Taking a Pelham, Deja Vu, Pearl Harbor. What do you got? You got
I
another
did
one?
Con Air, Anaconda. I got my last one.
Okay, I got two left. I'm gonna go Batman and Robin.
I love.
Yeah. Like, what business do you have as a scientist standing
You
up
are
here?
gigantic.
You're a huge bodybuilder wearing a lab coat. That's not real.
It's not how
Just
costuming
like
works.
pushing buttons, like that movie's great. Everything about that. The nipples on the bat suit.
Dr. Victor Freeze.
The whole thing. Let's cue up this video. Let's cue up this video of his origin story that I have conveniently loaded up
of
on my
course.
sweet
It's all
database.
cut together.
Yeah.
My number one is The Notebook.
That's not even guilty.
It's kind of guilty.
That movie's great.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I feel guilt. Like every time I say that I love The Notebook as much as I do, I feel a little guilty.
My roommate going through like Women Trouble recently watched it like several times in a week, like 3 times. It was on like over and over again when I would come home.
I should come over.
He's just
You should
sitting
have
there
invited me
crying.
over. Of course. That's what you do.
The same guy that owns the Braveheart sword, by the way.
He switches between the two films based on his mood.
He's a dangerous person. And then the last one I put on my list is Mortal Kombat. Because we did it on the show, kind of a like bumbling episode.
Yeah, it was a bust of an episode. There were some technical difficulties in it. I almost just want to do it again.
I know. It's just because there's just that there's a couple moments in the beginning that if you're watching, you're just like, I can't. What's going on here?
Yeah.
We could just do it again. That movie's totally entertaining and like just
So
really
good.
fun to talk about. I
don't wanna-
Yeah, Cage Blue as Ghost Rider. You're dead right. So yeah, that's my 5. Taking Pelham 1, 2, 3, Deja Vu, Pearl Harbor, Batman and Robin, and Mortal Kombat. I did have Transformers, the first one written down.
That's
also
a good one.
I love that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I had Punisher, Notebook, Anaconda, Tenacious D, and Con Air. Guys, let us know. You can You can hashtag top 5 guilty at Anime Podcast. Let us know your list because it is a very interesting, fun conversation.
So moving on to the next part of the show, we have favorite line. This is pretty simple.
Yep.
Let us know your favorite line. It has begun.
It has begun.
Damn right, Rangers fan. Let us know your favorite line in the movie. My favorite line is when he's like, Vaya con Dios, Castle. Go with God. I love it because he says the
Go
line.
with God.
He says the line, and then he's like, for any of you dumb enough to not know what that means, go with God. And then Castle's like, God's gonna sit this one out. They try to make the whole exchange like so serious,
but it's like such a joke.
Vaya con Dios, Castle. Go with God.
Go with God. Your face is
Where are the
amazing.
Reds from? Cincinnati, which is in Ohio.
You know what? So my favorite line is like what I said. It's, it made you kill your best friend, made you kill. But there's like a few lines in there that I just love. Like the Cuban Brothers. He's like, I've seen it rain like cats and dogs, but I've never seen it rain $100 bills, Howard. You're like, that's your cube. You sound ridiculous. There's that line, and then there's when Will Patton. I don't know why, but it's when Travolta slashes him. He's like, what?
Yeah.
Are you doing, Howard? I don't know. Those are my two favorite lines other than the main one, which is
Patton's one of the great unsung heroes of the 90s and 2000s.
yeah.
He's like one of the great unsung like character actors from that era where like you basically watch him and you're just like maybe your range is not as great as like a Robert Duvall or something because we've seen like guys like Duvall who have those similar kind of roles be just like awesome, like incredible Oscar winning, but like Patton was in so many sweet movies, and he's like so good in all of them.
Yeah.
So many in back-to-back-to-back movies right around then. Remember the Titans, Gone in 60 Seconds, Armageddon,
And
this movie.
And you're never bothered by him.
No.
You always, I always enjoy Will Patton.
Yeah.
100% of the time.
Love me some Will Patton.
And like, yeah. I mean, that it makes sense. He had a great run for like the type of actor he is.
Yeah.
And I hope he still does it. I hope he still just pops up in movies because he's always enjoyable.
I'll bet you he pops up in various TV shows and movies. I would be, favorite line, need some help with the underwear? Fuck off. Fuck off. That's awesome.
Tango and Cash. Yes, Tango and Cash.
Yeah, that movie gets brought up all the time. Thank you, James. All right, moving on to the next part of the show, we have AMA question of the day.
Yeah, we had a lot of good ones.
Yeah, there was a solid 15 or 20 really interesting ones this week. So, the J. Clymer Hammett question: is this the last time John Travolta was taken seriously as an actor? Question. We kind of already touched on that one. I think that the honest answer to that question is no, because of OJ, because that's like a major role that I think he got Golden Globe nominations for.
Yeah, I think to the untrained eye, yes. I think that to the most people that don't like follow Travolta's career or don't like actively watch new movies and TV, then I'd say yes. But yeah, it definitely, we've proven factually that it's not true.
Hairspray was a huge success. He plays a woman in that movie.
Like, no matter how much of a joke he is, that movie was massively successful.
Yeah,
it's a TV show now.
Yep. So then moving on to the second one, we have Ebhin E_dog_95. Was this character brought to the screen too early for the audience to react on a more positive note like Deadpool? And the answer is yes. That's basically the thesis that you were sharing, is that you feel like if this was made in 2010, it would have been a different movie.
Yeah, I think it'd be a lot more successful. And I know there was another post out there about superhero movies and however many of them we think should be relaunched as R-rated franchises.
Yeah, it's right here, John Sargent.
Oh, that's the next one.
Sergeant John 13 on Twitter. What other comic book character needs an R-rated film? Nice segue.
I did that on purpose.
That's an interesting question. That one probably... What other character? I mean,
is Logan going to be R?
I think so.
Supposed to be.
I think it's R. Yeah.
I think so, yeah, because the trailers are pretty... That looks amazing.
I want to do it on here.
We can do whatever we want.
Yeah. It's definitely a superhero.
It's 100% a superhero movie.
He's Wolverine.
Yeah, he's getting old. He's getting scars now. So there's Logan, there's Deadpool, and then there's Punisher. I think of the three that pop out immediately.
Yeah, I mean, there's other characters, like there's some DC characters. For instance, Lobo is a character that comes up a lot, and there's been Lobo movies in discussion for a long time. He would probably need an R rating. It's a TV show now. If you were ever going to make the Preacher movie, that would have definitely had an R rating.
But what about like I like superhero movies.
Yeah.
I like the Hulk and Superman, and like that type of audience.
Right.
Which one of those standalones could be, like, maybe if they made a standalone Magneto movie, it could be R, but even then The problem with Marvel movies being R is that all of them other than Deadpool and now Logan, because he's older, it feels wrong to make them anything other than PG-13 because it alienates your audience.
Definitely.
And it separates the worlds.
Cable is one that if they Logan is R. Cable is one that because of just the nature of his character in the books, like you could get away with an R-rated Cable movie. That wouldn't surprise me too much, though. I don't think they're going to make a Cable movie, and if they did, I can't imagine they would make it R. I don't think there's any DC characters that are like just distinctly would need.
I feel like Blade, maybe. Like if they were to redo a Blade movie, they could do that R. They'd have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the problem, like I just said, even the DC movies, even something as dark as The Dark Knight, like those movies could not have been rated R.
No, I know you alienate the audience too much. So yeah, there's not too many. There's not too many that jump out at me as like would need to be R. Because yeah, a lot of the really popular franchises, like The Walking Dead, is turned into basically an R-rated TV series in a lot of ways. So yeah, I can't think of too many. There's probably one or two really important ones that I am forgetting, but
yeah, you would know better than I would, I think.
But in any case, moving on to the last section of the show. Thank you guys for throwing in the questions, John Sargent, Evan, and Jay Clymer-Hammett.
And to everyone else who's we didn't get to. We'd love to just sit here and answer 20 questions, but unfortunately we cannot.
Yeah, we try to pick different people, so thanks for submitting on that, guys. There are 3 action movie categories to choose from. Totally ridiculous, totally legitimate, and ridiculously legitimate. They are pretty self-explanatory. Totally legitimate are movies like The Fugitive, A Lone Survivor. Totally ridiculous are movies like Con Air. And what was the last one we just did that was totally ridiculous? Armageddon. Yeah, it's just absurd.
Rocco was trying real hard on that one.
I think we might have actually agreed that was the middle category. I can't remember.
We may have gotten there.
And then the middle category, which is ridiculously legitimate, and that's movies like The Rock, Point Break, Speed,
Punisher for me. I'm gonna go ahead and say that right now.
Just answer the question, huh?
I think so. I think this movie is ridiculously legitimate for me. I know that I have a slight bias.
Yeah.
But I don't find myself laughing unintentionally that much. I think the action's really good in it. The fight scenes are sweet. Kevin Nash and the hitman, Harry, what's his name? Harry Heck.
Another character, I believe, from the same comic books.
Yeah, it's not too ridiculous. It's definitely not too legitimate. I think it falls right in the middle. It's just dark enough, just real enough.
I'll give it to you. Yeah, it's gory enough. There's some absurd moments, but yeah, it holds. Totally ridiculous and stupid. Thank you, Jonas Tiger. I appreciate that. I think it holds together well enough that I can put it in the middle category. It's on the edge for me, but this would be a hard one for me to. If I called this movie totally ridiculous, it would like it's hard to find a fist bump moment like the fist bump moment I found in a movie that's totally ridiculous.
Yeah, definitely.
So
it's like such a real moment.
Yeah. So I like those moments. So yeah, last thing on the show we're going to talk about is something called The Pitch. I'm glad we never have gotten the sound effect of the tiger.
No, I like doing it.
Yeah.
I think I'm very good at it. This is an exciting one.
Yeah, this is great, guys. Straight up, go see it this weekend. Fucking John Wick Chapter 2 in theaters now. We can't wait.
Somebody give that man a gun.
Somebody give that man a gun. Keanu, he's back. John Wick. This is exciting. So go see it. We're going to be covering John Wick 2 next week. I don't know if we're going to have a guest or what. We'll kind of find out, but follow us on Twitter.
It doesn't matter. We could do the solo show.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. Follow us on Twitter at AMA Podcast. Share your thoughts. Share your hashtag AMA question of the day for John Wick 2. Go see it, same as us this weekend. We can't wait, and we'll be covering it next week. So if you guys want to follow along and tweet at us, you can find me at Ben Bateman Media.
And you guys can find me at Andrew Ghai.
So we'll see you guys next week. Take care. Bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.